welcome everybody to episode 5 of Unwinding with Support Group. Today's episode, we will continue our conversation about trauma. Today, we're going to talk about trauma bonding. And as a reminder, I'm Arlene. I'm an LPC. Guests today are Dr. Alex. Again, that's a doctor in traumatology, and she's been with us before.
Hello, hello.
And Alex, what is your beverage of choice today?
I have the crisp, refreshing wonderfulness that is the lemon lime Sprite.
Oh, lemon lime Sprite.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And we also have Bree, who works in the mental health field.
Hello. That was awkward. That was an awkward hello.
Oh, well, it wouldn't be you if it wasn't somewhat awkward.
True.
All right. Then Bree, what are you drinking today?
A simply spiked cherry limeade.
Nice. All
Yeah.
right.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. And I am drinking Mountain Dew. And not an adult beverage, as I am coming to everybody from my not regular location, but from the hospital room of Mott's Children's Hospital in Ann Arbor. So no alcohol allowed in the kids' hospital wing for some odd reason. I don't know why that'd be a thing.
That's such a
So,
weird rule.
listen, I even had to smuggle in the Mountain Dew because they only provide diet or no sugar added beverages here in the hospital. So I smuggled in real caffeine pop because I can't live here for multiple days without actual caffeine and sugar.
Real sugar.
Real sugar, real caffeine. I can't do it. It's like, oh, so. But on that, we will start our conversation about trauma bonding. And trauma bonding is a commonly used concept. People use it all the time, but it isn't generally what people think it is. Trauma bonding is relationships that manifest in various contexts, not just romantic relationships, but they include parent-child abuse situation, hostage, cult dynamics, workplace exploitation, abusive friendships, and domestic violence. They're all characterized by a cycle of intermittent punishment, control, and reward that lead to an intense emotional dependence and loyalty to the abuser or a traumatic situation despite the harm. Right? So that's what actual trauma bonding is and what that really looks like. Examples of this are the romantic domestic relationships, a parent-child relationship when the parent is abusive or neglectful, hostage or kidnapping situations. Some of this could even be like in human trafficking, cults or religious extremism, child abuse and incest, even in abusive friendships, workplace exploitation. Trauma bonds can happen in military context, and these are a little bit different. These trauma bonds are through shared trauma and a cycle of control and dependence. That comes through like extreme training, and that trauma bond can be different than the cycle of violence and control that we're discussing in others, but that trauma bond, it does exist in military contexts. So having discussed those things, as we get going, I think it's just important for us to like recognize what a trauma bond is, because people say, oh, we trauma bonded, which is basically we trauma dumped on each other. And that's really what you're saying, right? We became friends because we have mutual traumatic experiences. And that's a different concept. So with that, thoughts, ladies, where do you want to go from here?
Well, I know we talked a little bit about in our last talk together, Arlene, about victims and abusers and going back to an abuser 7 times on average. Do you feel like that's the same with the trauma bonding, or do you feel like it's harder to break from trauma bond than a narcissistic relationship?
I think it's part of it with the domestic, like the domestic violence part of it.
Mm-hmm.
When there's emotional abuse in there or emotional dependence, if we look at the power and control wheel, right? Isolation, financial dependence, like cutting off, any other parts of that part, like, using the kids. Um, there's physical abuse or sexual abuse in that. So all of that can be part of it. And if we're using things like love bombing as the other pieces of the aspect of the upswing of that to make up for all of the abuse, then that definitely can be a difficult thing to navigate through, because those occasional acts of kindness or that love bombing is definitely hard. There are times when things are okay. They didn't really mean it if they didn't love me so much. So I think in these kind of contexts, that trauma bond does become like primary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're kind of clinging to the moments of affection or the apology, and they can make the excuse of, it's my fault. It's my fault. I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have been late with the dinner. I shouldn't have
I knew
answered
better.
the phone. I can do better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I knew he was in a bad mood, and I pushed anyways.
They're
Right.
just going through something.
Yeah, the blaming the victim part of it.
I think talking a little bit about the parent-child dynamic might be a cool place to go.
Okay. All right. So the parent-child one is the child develops loyalty to an abusive or neglectful parent. And that is because um, it's the perceived responsibility or lack of safety. So, like, if we look at that, I think that's definitely a big piece. What do you think, Bree?
Well, I think it's hard too when you're thinking about parents and kids, because it's almost instilled in kids, like when they're in school or when they're interacting with their friends, whatever the case may be, that you're supposed to love your parents, you're supposed to have a deep bond with them. And even though something might be happening where that bond is being broken in a way, they're still your parent. And a lot of times I feel like, in my experience of speaking with people who have been in abusive childhoods, it's just like any other abusive relationship. It's not always like that. Their parents aren't always mad. Their parents aren't always in this abusive cycle. There are moments of love and happiness, and that can be really confusing as a young person trying to navigate a crappy situation, and then also trying to just be a normal kid.
I think that you hit that part of being a normal kid is where I think it gets like lost, right? Um, if you're growing up in a neglectful situation or an abusive situation, your your skills at adapting, your coping skills and or lack of coping skills are different. Your ability to trust is a little bit different. Um, how you share, what you share becomes different. So I think even in the context of like what you're saying of trying to be a normal kid, like that changes. And so I do think there's some truth to that of like how much of our do you end up pretending?
Yeah, idolizing like the relationship as if they're somebody different than who they really are, the parent, that being.
Yeah. What do you think, Alex?
I've worked with a lot of adults that have childhood traumas and have this expectation of what their relationship with their parent was going to be versus what it really is. And sometimes it's really hard for them to almost accept that it's not a healthy relationship, that their parent has instilled in them environmental learnings that they themselves don't want to repeat to their children. So, in turn, was it a healthy relationship with their parent if they're trying to not be like them? Like, yeah, my parent did this and it hurt my feelings, but they love me. They just don't know how to show it. And so I'm gonna show my kid this way because that's what I was missing. And I'm like, okay, well, pause there. Tell me what you just said again. Well, I'm not going to do this because it hurt me. Period. End of story. Okay, so it hurt you. So we need to grieve the expectation of the relationship with the parent. You need to stop trying to please them as an adult and to take the relationship for what it is, which was they hurt you. So you are doing this differently. And so sometimes it's really, really hard for them to grieve the expectations that they've had for 30, 40 years of this relationship. Well, if I do this, they'll love me more. If I do this better, then it will be better. And they're 40, 50 years old and they're still saying those things. And I'm like, okay, so we need to look at the expectation of the relationship that you've had and then the reality of it, the truth of it.
I think this one is interesting because all of the trauma bonds that are on the list of, none of them are great, right? But the parent-child relationship one has the ability to have the most long-lasting impact on someone's life. So I think it's the one that I would say is probably like the hardest. Not that any of them are good, not that any of them aren't hard, but a parent-child trauma bond impacts the child for their whole life unless they learn how to resolve it
Mhm.
for all of the things you're saying. I think it's important to also recognize like some developmental things here. When kids are little, they don't have the ability for their brain to see outside of themselves. So everything is from a first person perspective. So if your parent is angry and upset at you and is yelling at you, it is your fault. You are the problem. Because you can't conceptualize because your brain doesn't have other thought processes to be able to see that your mom might have just had a bad day at work or your dad might have got fired. You don't have that kind of reasoning yet. All you see is mom yelled at me or dad hit me or both. And so therefore it starts to become ingrained that you are the problem. And even as you grow up and you develop more cognitive reason and you can see third person perspectives and you're able to conceptualize your parent as a individual outside of you, you're still at a core now. The core learning is as the child, you are the problem. And you can do some rationalization of like, okay, but they were mad. But that piece of you that still is, I'm the problem, that doesn't go away. It shows up in other ways. It might show up in relationships you choose. It might show up in friendships. It might show up in your career choice. It might show up in lots of behaviors, but like that's what happens. So that's why I'm saying, like, I think it's the most impactful because if it's starting when you're a small child, that cognitive part of it starts to become like internally just, it's me. It's the Taylor Swift song, Hi, it's me, I'm the problem. and you have like nothing to like ping that off of, because the people you believe who are supposed to love you unconditionally show it to you conditionally.
And it
So
really
I
does
think,
set a tone, yeah,
yeah,
for relationships moving forward and self-esteem and how you move about your life in general and your professional, your academic, because it's, conditional love. Therefore, you have to perform at your best. And if you make any kind of mistake, guess what? You immediately go to, I'm a failure. No one's going to love me. Performative. Mhm.
there's also like the lack of safety part.
Mhm.
If you spend your life seeking, knowing nothing is like that foundational piece isn't safe. Once things become in your control, well, the one thing you seek always, anybody want to fill in the blank? Safety.
Mhm. Yep.
And safety looks different for a lot of people. Some people that's financial. Some people that's safety in relationships and stability. It's safety looks different, but that becomes the primary thing you seek. Safety.
Mhm.
Back to what you said, seeking the thing I didn't get.
Yep. And if you have it and you feel it for a split second, you get that fear of, oh my God, when is it all going to crash down? When is it all going to leave? When is it, this is unstable, this isn't stable, this is chaos. And then you create chaos where there is none because that's what you're used to in your brain.
Bree, the cats are joining us again.
That they are. Silo loves the camera. He just wants to be seen and petted.
So, but you're right, Alex,
Uh,
that's for sure. What are your thoughts, Bree? I know
I
you
think
have some.
it's an interesting thought of kind of what you were saying, Alex, when something goes wrong, that it's almost like catastrophizing. Um, and it has the tendency to like shape the way that person views the relationship as if they're no longer safe. They can't find that safety. Um, it strikes me a lot as like, sorry, my cats are fighting. It strikes me a lot as like when some people with personality disorders have their like favorite person, and that favorite person does something to harm them, and then it's like it's all over with. I feel like that happens a lot in my experience with people who have childhood trauma. Is as soon as it goes bad, it's all bad, and there's no way for this to get better because they've lost that moment of safety that they originally felt they had.
No, that's a solid point, right? Bringing up, you're right, with like some personality disorders as well, where that one safe person, but also you're right, if you're developing safety or security in one person and they do something that dismantles that even slightly, then it is they that trust is gone because, well, I know where this goes. Because old thought processes and behaviors automatically come in. Like you hit that straight on.
Well, and they're your formative years also. I mean, if you don't go to your friend's house, which is kind of normal for kids, like they may go every now and then, but they're not spending large amounts of time, most of the time at friend's house. They spend a large amount of time at home. That's the only thing you know. Like it's so common, and it's so, I don't know, feels like home, which when home wasn't a safe place to be, then the rest of your life is never, it's just going to be chasing what home might look like, even when home wasn't a good, I don't know if I'm saying that right, but wasn't a good place to be.
No, that's exactly it, right? It takes a lot of work to find your own sense of home. which also then takes work. And I mean like work on you, because then home becomes you. Like if you do enough work as the child, then you become home. You become your safe space.
I think should be the ultimate goal for most individuals, trying to feel that comfort within yourself and safety within yourself,
I
whether
agree.
use was in the life or not.
Yeah. It's a hard road to road to hoe. Is that the phrase?
A road to hope.
It's a hard thing to do is essentially what I'm trying to say. Um and recognizing though that like to be comfortable with yourself means you have to do a lot of work, you have to do a lot of growth, you have to, take a look at yourself and figure out where you need to grow. Um and sometimes it's a little easier to do when you know you need to seek something out because you know something's not right. Because somewhere along the way, you're going to see parents engaging with their kids in a way yours don't as a kid. You're going to see, let's say, for example, like my parents suck and they were just the worst things on the planet. And we go to school and we're at a thing and my parents don't show up, but both of yours do. And I see the way they interact with you and the way they congratulate you and the way they hug you and support you. I'm going to see that. I'm going to be like, oh, the fuck is that? And if I see that continually enough, I'm going to realize something's wrong in my house. Like kids see that shit as they get older. They're like, wait a, so like this isn't just how everybody's shit is? Cool. Awesome. Good to know. Alex, mom just be coming to everything. Good for her.
However, despite picking up on that and noticing that, some folks tend to repeat certain environmental behaviors as they grow up because that's what they're comfortable with, that's what they know, so they can recognize that that's not the safest thing in the world or that's not the healthiest thing in the world, but then they find themselves in something similar to it in other relationships or professions or whatever it might be because they are so comfortable in the chaos.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll go back to it's hard work.
Mm-hmm.
And if like, oh, this feels normal. Like this feels normal. And not everybody recognizes that the normal that they feel is because what they're experiencing is similar to what they grew up in.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Just because it feels comfortable doesn't always mean comfortable is good.
Mm-hmm.
But if you confusing comfortable with safety, because that's usually what then happens,
Mm-hmm.
right? Then you're like, oh, I feel safe because this feels comfortable. And then it's just the same shit in a different way.
And what are some of those different ways? I think that would bring us nicely to, what do you think, relationships? Romantic?
Yeah. I mean, we don't want to talk about cults by chance.
I mean, we can totally talk about cults.
um, uh, there's friendships. There are the romantic relationships, which we've kind of talked about, or workplace exploitation.
Workplace is good. How about we go to cults though? Because I feel like that's where you want to go. So let's go there.
I just thought it was funny. Sorry.
Mhm.
I just think that cults is on here is a hilarious one. given all the things.
I actually have a couple people on my caseload right now who are healing from cult mentality growing up. Like,
Yeah.
it's a lot more common than you think.
It actually is.
Yeah.
There is one state that's known for all the cults. Do you know what state that is?
Utah.
No,
Which one?
Texas.
Texas?
Hmm.
Huh.
They have like 1 billion. They have so many cults in Texas. It's like a pastime in Texas. Hmm.
Well, I was kind of close.
Utah, Texas,
You
like
know,
Utah, Florida, Texas, all of them.
all of the things. All of them.
Or Utah. What did Utah even do to get thrown in
I-
with Texas?
I don't know. I think I watched some documentary about a cult and they were like in Utah or yeah, they were in
I'm
Utah.
not saying they don't exist in Utah. I'm just saying that Texas has
The
more.
most. Mhm.
It's like a pastime in Texas,
Mhm.
shooting things and cults.
There
It's
you go.
Texas. It's the Texas way.
That's a
Should
good
be
combination.
it should be their motto for their state, not the Lone Star State.
Mhm.
Anybody who in Texas who is listening to this hates me right now.
Well, I'm pretty sure Utah hates me now, so it's okay. I'll take some of the heat off of you.
Like, how many they're like, how many cults do we have?
Yeah. It's all because that one documentary I watched, okay?
People in Texas or Utah are like, how many cults do we have? And how do they not know this?
To be fair, that is too many.
And how do the people who don't live here know this?
They came for trauma bonding, they left with cult information and cult education.
The little nuggets, the little
Little-
tidbits.
Yeah, the Easter eggs. Maybe we're doing a cult episode later.
Maybe you never know.
You never know.
We went on a tangent, Brian. It wasn't even you.
Surprisingly.
Shocking. Do we want to do workplace though? Honestly,
Sure.
um, how many of us have worked shitty jobs? All of us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
One.
No, Brie, you've only worked great jobs. Oh, that's awesome. Good for you.
What can I say? Star employee.
Star employee of the year.
Employee of the year.
All right. So workplace trauma bonding is this. Employees develop the trauma bond with an abusive or manipulative boss in toxic work environments. So this is essentially when your supervisor, boss, whatever, exerts their power and control because they have all the authority, right? And they exert it all the time. They do intermittent praise with like then threatening you, which breeds like fear and uncertainty in the entire dynamic. You never know if you're going to do enough or it's going to be right. So you're constantly like on pins and needles. But you also like can't leave because of the dynamic. So now that we have identified that and we're all thinking of past supervisors, anybody have one that fits that dynamic? Even if you didn't develop the bond, or have you seen it as other people that you've worked with in other places?
I definitely had a boss like that when I was younger. like still in college. I don't know how deep the bond would have been, but it was definitely like something that was very difficult for me when I eventually wound up leaving the position. I had moved around in the company a little bit and was going to a different direction. And yeah, leaving her was tough because just like you said, like she was kind of the explosive type. Um, when things would go wrong, she would like lose it a little bit, which maybe was understandable. The job was not the best job for anybody involved, and it was a hard position for her to be in, I suppose. Um, and sometimes the things that would happen were just kind of like head scratching. So to have somebody kind of explode though would be like really shocking every time it would happen. And even when it would happen to me, like having her like kind of explode on me, it was scary, it was scary to have to do that. But then come to work the next day and it's like nothing ever happened and things were all hunky dory. And then you kind of have to go back to walking on eggshells again, hoping you don't mess up, at least not to a point in which you're going to upset them.
Yeah, and that makes that very difficult to focus on just doing your job.
Precisely. And the job I had, don't get me wrong, it was not a hard job. This was a job for a college age kid. It was appropriate. It was easy. It was not something that I really should have been making many mistakes at, but his life. And I don't know, it would be weird coming into work every day and it's like you almost get like sweaty.
Yeah, I get that. Alex.
I just keep thinking about this thing that I saw um, that said, once my nervous system at work understands the difference between a tiger attacking me and an email from my boss, I'm going to be unstoppable. And I just like, I get that because when you walk into work and you have no idea what you're walking into, good, bad, you don't know what kind of mood your boss is going to be in, if they're going to hate you today or love you today or whatever, it just burns you out quick. And
It does.
it's just like, oh, the fear is just all consuming. But you have to show up, you have to do the job because you don't want to disappoint them. But at the same time, you're like, well, I don't really care because they've hurt my feelings. But then you're like, no, you make excuses for them. They're just having a bad day. Whatever. This job is really not that bad. It's a good paycheck. It's a good paycheck. It's, whatever it might be. But yeah, it can definitely be so traumatizing. Workplace trauma it's real.
It is a real thing. It is. I have had a few supervisors who engage in that kind of behavior, and I have witnessed how that impacts like others around me. And most of it I have experienced a little later in my professional career, so I'm not so easily to like fall into that just because I set hard boundaries in that. But I definitely know had I been younger and more like not have worked through my own stuff, like still trying to gain stuff in this field, still like needing to know things that puts you at a disadvantage. Because someone who's like, I know things that you need to know, wield the level of power and authority that is hard to ignore. And to be able to watch that. And I mean, it's not that I didn't get the same type of treatment because they were just a shitty fucking supervisor. I just set healthy boundaries for myself and had no problem arguing. because it was later in my career. I've had other types of shitty supervisors because they are shitty supervisors, just not ones that fall into this until later in my career. And they suck. They leverage relationships to like as people as pawns. You're like running around like, what can I get my little puppets to do today? And that's exactly what they look like as they're moving people around. It's like people on a chessboard. How can I play the game with people's lives? And that's just not okay. And that's what it is in those kind of dynamics. So, but workplace trauma is a real thing. And it's hard when you leave that place that's toxic as shit to move into a place because that carries with you because it's not like you can be like, okay, I'm not going to work until I've dealt with this workplace trauma unless you are somehow privately rich and well off. If you are, good for you. Work through your workplace trauma. Most of us have to work again. So you carry that to the new place. You carry that uncertainty, your fears, all that shit with you. Just like the other dynamics, they carry with you. So we were talking about with the parent and child one, just like we would talk about in like a romantic relationship, it carries into the next thing. Unfortunately. So.
Yep.
All right. So before we wrap this up, call it a day. I just want key elements of trauma bonds real quick for all the peoples. Our intermittent reinforcements, which are positive reinforcements like love bombing, flattery, reconciliation, which creates that powerful like reinforcement to the person or the cycle. There's always a power imbalance of some sort. Emotional dependency. The victim often abuses love for safety. Like that emotional dependence, they also often think is like, oh, this is love or safety, and it's just really emotional dependence. Loss of self. The victim's identity, self-worth diminish, also making it harder to leave. And of course, our favorite, fear and terror. Because, you know, what's a good trauma bond without fear and terror? So I just thought this was a really good topic because, again, a lot of like common words that get thrown around. Oh, yeah, we trauma bonded. When really it's three people sitting around trauma dumping on each other and they just became friends because all their trauma meshes up. Which is cool and that's fine. But that's not trauma bonding. Not in the sense of what it actually is. And since society likes to, you know, manifest therapy words for its own use, I sometimes think it's important that we recognize what they really are. Any last words, ladies?
No, I think this was great. I think it's important that people have a solid understanding of what these terms really mean and what they really truly are. So I think, yeah, I think that was great.
Bree?
Absolutely. I think it's you know, it's harmful to throw around words without knowing where they're coming from. Because it takes away from what's truly happening. So when people are experiencing things like trauma bonding, they should know, they should be aware of what's actually happening, and be able to correctly identify it so that if it is happening to them, they can seek the help they deserve.
Exactly. I agree. I agree. All right. Well, thanks everybody for showing up. I appreciate you, Alex and Bree, for being here again tonight.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us.
If you enjoyed today's episode, follow us on Instagram at Unwinding Support or email us at unwindingmentalhealth@gmail.com.